Okay guys, I'm going to show you the method that I use to put feeder wires on the bottoms of my rail. So in place I have a rail. I use this tacky material. Actually it's just called tacky, but it's a product I think is used for attaching things to walls to the craft section of a department store or a Hobby Lobby. But it's really handy for holding materials in place while you solder. This is pre-bent for a particular location on the layout. I come back a standard distance so that they are easy to locate in the ballast, as they will not be visible on the finished layout, and that's the idea. However, in the case of maintenance, you may need to find it to verify or to repair it and then touch up your ballast. You can measure the same distance. It is a measured distance. However, what I often do is just keep one of my short sections of rail. This is a scale 39 feet long, scale 39 and a half feet long section of rail that is used across section joints in the layout. So I will use that to mark my location where I want to put my feeder so that it is consistent. And I'll put a small mark on the rail where that goes. Now, to give the solder a better base to attach to, we will file a small area adjacent to that mark. I will just coarse up or slightly rough up the bottom of the rail. I do not want to degrade the shape of the rail or make any noticeable indentation, not anything significant. However, we're going to fill that up a little bit with solder, so it doesn't hurt if a little bit of the rail material is gone. So there will be a slight coarseness at the bottom of the rail. Alright, now we need to tin the bottom of the rail so that it's ready to receive our wire. Now I will put a reasonable strip of solder, not much solder, but a reasonable distance back, more than necessary, and I'll show you how we clean that up after the fact. Right. Now, for feeder wires, I make them all a consistent length. They are 22 gauge wire. I think this is the wire that is used in a company called thermostat wire, but it's 22 gauge wire. We will I pre-strip and pre-tin these wires. However, I kind of do it quickly and I make them a little bit longer than necessary. Also, solder tends to beat up against the end and make a larger, bulkier end, and I clip that off and clip it down to something shorter. Then I will take and put a slight bend, not a full 90 yet, but something like a 45 in it for now. And then I will take my pliers and I will flatten that out as much as reasonably possible without flattening at the point of the bend. Okay. Then, these are really handy, by the way, for soldering. These normally closed tweezers, really like them. And now we will attach our feeder. You do not want the wire to overhang the sides. You want it to be flat to the bottom of the rail, exposing as little as is possible, or hanging down below the rail as little as is possible. Again, I'll show you how we clean that up and make that perfect in just a moment. And once you have it rigid, Now we want to go ahead and complete the 90-degree bend. Again, all that you're doing now is also testing the rigidity of your solder joint. You'll notice that that wire is fairly visible under the edge of the rail. What we're going to do again is file the solder joint, and I'm going to file it in a couple locations. So I will file any excess solder off behind the joint. Be careful to not run your file too much into this wire or you will degrade its stability. I file ahead of the wire, again removing any excess solder, making a smooth bottom to adhere to my ties. And I will also file this to make it as thin as possible without, again, doing everything I can to not degrade the wire for structural and electrical stability. And if you can see how much excess solder is on there now, in just a moment I'll show you how much cleaner that becomes. I also solder at a slight angle in both directions, this way and this way, to make sure that I remove any solder that would be along the bottom foot of the rail. Again, be careful not to run your file down too much into the wire or you will degrade the stability structurally and electrically at the joint of the wire to the rail. Clean up anywhere that you see solder on the visible section of the rail. Make sure that when you look across the bottom, you should see nothing but smooth rail up to the wire and away from the wire. And then you end up with a very flat connecting wire. If that had to set on a tie plate or on a tie, sometimes it does, then it will depress that tie very little. I often try to center this between two ties and will sometimes do a little bit of additional filing on this edge if necessary to allow that to fit that way. But again, that is structurally solid, passes all the electrical current that is necessary, as I add feeders to both ends of my rail for a few reasons. And then I clean up all the joints so that there is no visible way to see that electrical connection once the layout is finished and ballasted. Thank you.